We're going to start the meeting. We're going to start part one, which is the board meeting. So I call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock on the 20th of November. Let's start by going around the table and then online with introductions.
There we go, opening question.
Yes, that's right. There is an opening question. So when you introduce yourself, you can say what community council you're associated with or other body, and just mention some other non-profits you're on the board of. If you wish. Actually, I will start. My name is Mike Edgington. I'm chair of FCC, and also on a couple of non-profits, including one called Good with Bear Away. That's the sticker.
Good evening, Daniel George, Mountain View Community Council representative. And I also serve on the board of Shiloh Community Housing.
Lizzie Newell, I'm the president of the Abbott Loop Community Council. I live down in Independence Park. We're in the low right district, the hillside.
Is it my turn? All right, I'm Bruce Ferguson. I'm with the Hillside Community Council. You know,
Good.
what's that? Question.
What was that?
Right here. I do not serve on any other. Jason Moore, Captain O'Malley, not only nonprofit boards, but I am on the FCC committee as well.
Kathleen Bucket, Russia Jack, and I'm on the NeighborWorks Alaska board, have been for quite some time.
Kevin Feynman from Campbell Park Community Council. And I serve on KNOM Radio Mission Inc. 501c3.
Kathy Gleason, Turning Community Council, current board president, and I'm on some working groups, but they're not really board positions. So right now, just FCC board.
John Thurber, President, South Edition, and I'm not on any other boards.
Patrick LeMay, Scenic Foothills, no nonprofits.
Yeah, you want me to talk to someone? Yeah, starting with Chris.
Hi, I'm President of Midtown Community Council. I'm also on the board for Scouting America.
Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Packard, president of the Tourniquet Arm Community Council. I'm also vice president of the Antique Auto Mushers of Alaska.
Ooh, I gotta talk to you.
Anytime.
Alan.
Hi, Alex Jorgensen. I'm a delegate for the Eagle River Valley Community Council.
Mike. You all see Alan.
Might not hear you.
Hey, Mike Kenny, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Mike Kenny from Rabbit Creek Community Council, also on the board of Halo.
Gary.
Yes, hello, Gary Meters, Old Seward, Ocean View. I'm retired, and that's it.
John. Okay, we'll move on to Al.
Yeah, University Area Community Council, and are we identifying other boards we may be on also? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm also a commissioner on the Anchorage Military Veterans Affairs.
Nice. Daryl.
Yeah, my name's Daryl Parks. I'm with the Chugach Community Council. I'm the president of the council. I'm also elected official for the Chugach Volunteer Board of Supervisors out here in Chugach, and I serve on the board for Koyukon Camp Ministries.
Great. Bob French.
Yes, Bob French with Government Hill Community Council, and I am also the FCC rep to the AMAT Citizens Advisory Committee, which has not been actually meeting for the past 6 or 8 months.
Cliff.
Hi, this is Cliff Cook, the Vice Chair of Eagle River Community Patrol, and also the lead for the Eagle River Community Patrol and the Coalition of Community Patrols, a member of that. Thank you.
Amazing. Amanda. Maybe. Amanda.
Amanda Moser, sorry. I'm having technical problems. Amanda Moser, I am the delegate for the Airport Heights Community Council, and I am on the board of directors for Institute of the North, and I'm on the board of directors for a investment club. That is all.
Monica.
Hi everyone, it's Monica Stringendorf. I am a FCC delegate for the Northeast Community Council.
And then we have a couple of, Alan, can you hear me? Or Don?
So Alan Kemplin, member of the executive board of Fairview Community Council.
And then we have a couple other people on the line, it looks like.
Hi, yes, I'm Taylor Keegan. I'm the superintendent of Anchorage Parks and Recreation. I'll be presenting with Chelsea Ward-Waller later about the CIP.
Thanks, Taylor.
How about me? Can I speak now? On Crafts,
Yeah.
Basher, Community Council Delegate, and also their treasurer currently.
Thanks, Don. I see we also have Barb. Hi, Barb. And Steve.
Stephen Callahan, University Area Community Council President.
And Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Klein. I'm the Rogers Park Community Council Vice President and joining in tonight. Yeah, for Maryland.
And then I think I missed one new person in the back. Hi, welcome.
Hello, yeah. TJ Andrews with Campbell Park. Kevin invited me to the FCC. Today's my first meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody. So for purposes of record, do we have quorum?
We have
We have quorum. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So one of the reasons we asked that question about other boards, non-profit boards who are on, is just to kind of reinforce that we have these two parts to the meeting now. The first part is kind of the FCC internal organizations. That's the board meeting, like other non-profits. And then the second part is the coalition meeting we're calling, which is really our mission and work with community council. So we've gone through introductions. Our second item is consent agenda. We're doing that slightly differently this month. So I will have you how you went through this.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So to keep us on schedule and to help facilitate some of the time for conversation, we are trying out a consent agenda. I did include an explainer with this month's agenda that kind of goes through all of the changes that we've made. None of them are set in stone. We're trying different things to see what's most efficient and effective and serves you guys the best. And so we're doing a consent agenda to streamline the meetings. Before the meeting, we send out the whole agenda with we send out the agenda and the minutes and any reports for internal at the same time. So you guys have a chance to review them in plenty of time in advance. We'll ask if there's any objections to approving all the items. If there's no objections, then we just do one approval process for it. at any point, if a member has a question, we can pull out an agenda. If you're familiar with the assembly, in theory, this is supposed to work the same way. So we're just gonna say like, cool, agenda, minutes, treasurer's report, staff report, good to go. And if you have any questions that you want to bring to the group, you can just ask to pull out an item. And if you don't have any questions or you want to follow up with us on something just later, you're welcome to as well. It doesn't mean, you can't ask questions later.
So are there any particular questions or anything somebody would like to pull out and discuss in more detail? I'll give you give people a few more seconds to read through.
And this privacy policy, is that part of the consent agenda? Oh, no, it is not.
Yeah, that'll be covered later.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any additional questions, so in that case, would someone like to move to approve the consent agenda items? Sorry, yeah, items 2.1 through 2.4. Someone can move to accept these items. So moved. Thank you very much. Do I hear a second? Thank you. So I'll do this by consent unless there are any objections. Not seeing any objections online or in the room. So we have now accepted consent agenda items. Thank you. That was a little quick.
Just have a question. Now,
Yeah, sure.
Under treasurer's report, at least quarterly, I prefer to have a verbal, overview. Maybe not every meeting, but.
That makes sense. I think the way we're intending to do it, I think every month is probably a little too much detail. So the intent is to quarterly go into a little bit more detail and then have the material available every year.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item for discussion is new treasurer election. So we do have at least some interest in this. So I'll hand it over to I'll just hand it out. Do we have any nominations? Do we have any nominations for treasurer?
Nominations remain open. There's no nominations currently. I believe we have one individual who is interested, and I'll go ahead and nominate them just to get things rolling here. I would nominate Patrick LeMay to be treasurer for the remainder of the FCC term, which will be until June 30th, 2025.
Great, thank you. Are there any other nominations?
From Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. Are there any other nominations?
I know you're all dying to serve.
Okay, we'll declare nominations closed. We have one candidate. Patrick, would you just like to, just before we do any formal action, would you just like to say a little bit about your background and why you're interested in this role?
Well, yes, I would.
Thank you.
I do understand profit and loss statements and how to read them. Run my own corporation. The only thing I don't do, I have approximately 18 employees. I do my own payroll. And the only thing I don't do is quarterly reports and year-end taxes. I let my accountant handle that. So I also do a lot of budgeting for my clients, my tribal clients, and I have to look at their P&Ls. And so I'm very familiar with P&L and budgeting and cost estimating, whatever it may be. I do want to hear one disclosure. I am a contractor to the municipality of Anchorage.
So you are familiar with the process of being a recipient of funding?
I understand grant funding and I, as a corporation, I do work for the municipality. I just want to put that out there. Everybody knows, but there is no conflict. I believe I've talked about it with somebody.
Any questions?
Yeah.
A comment. Patrick and I served on the accounting kind of committee, finance committee, when we had a new treasurer that was replacing me previous year, but then she moved on to running she's gonna be a member of the state house now. So then I came back to being the treasurer for the finish out that term. But Patrick and I did meet. I think we had 2 times where we met on Zoom, whatever. So we did do a little bit of discussion, but then Carolyn kind of went away, and that was kind of the end of it. But I think Patrick, you did a good job.
And they were prepping me at the time to say yeah, or they were encouraging me at the time.
He was being
I was being prepped.
Yeah, there's target on your back.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions, we can move on to your vote. We've had, as with that nomination second. So I'll do this by consent. So if anyone has any objections to Patrick or me becoming treasurer, say so now. Make yourself known. Seeing anything in the room or online, I think by consent. Thank you. Treasurer. Got him.
What did I get myself into?
It's fun.
A supportive environment.
Just remember, the most important thing the treasurer does is he goes, looks at his hands, he goes, these hands were made for counting money. Where's it at?
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to items 4 and 5 are discussion topics. So we're not taking any action or vote tonight. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the introduction of the privacy policy. I'll hand this over to Patty.
What's yours?
Oh, okay. Okay, this is unfortunately something I think we will expect. So the purpose of the privacy policy is sort of having written a set of procedures and processes and we comply with various federal and
A little louder, please.
sorry, sure. So the purpose of the privacy policy is to make it clear what we do with information we gather. There are several state laws that require certain things to be followed. We probably don't fall under any of those. There are some federal requirements as well. But it's good practice, good policy to have a clear statement of what we do with data. So that's what this document is for. The primary information there are 2 types of information we gather. One is information which is core to the work we actually do. So for example, we have contact information for each community council. We have contact information for other bodies we work with. And then we also have a number of mailing lists, which are information people voluntarily give us to be generally informed. And these fall under slightly different categories. And underneath the policy, we have the process. Sorry? Okay, thank you. So we have processes for if people want to be removed from mailing lists, if it's not core to our purpose. If people want to be removed from mailing lists, there's a process to do that, etc. So that's what this covers. Yeah, and then we also have statements about why we're holding information, what the information is for, etc. So that's sort of in a nutshell what it is. What I'd encourage everyone to do, if they're interested, is to read through this. Definitely, if you've got any questions now, we can address them. Otherwise, we'll have a more complete discussion next month and vote to approve the policy. Is there anything you want to say? Sorry, that's right. We'll do a ratification of the policy at the next meeting. But if there are any questions now, we can address those. I know there is a lot here.
I have a general question, Sharon. Is this like a template from other sources, or is this completely created for FCC?
It's very, I think there were 2 or 3 other sources.
Both, yeah, trying to grab what makes sense from a variety of spaces and apply it to us. So it's not a copy paste. It's for us specifically, but it's built on what good practices are.
Okay, thank you.
It's a familiar framework.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But I didn't just take 4 Acres Guide and say like, there's our name. We have a question from Amanda.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Not a question. I just wanted to thank the executive board and Ari for continuing to move forward with this really important work of getting our house in order. So thank you so much. This is exciting.
And what I guess I will say is that I can apply for certain technological support grants, but a lot of them ask for us to have some sort of privacy policy, which is why this is earlier. It's something we should have with the new website. So in the timeliness of why we're doing this now versus later is because this will go on our website. This will be something that opens up some grant opportunities for our organization. So it's very helpful.
Okay, we will see any more questions. So again, we'll have we can go into more detail if necessary. If people come back with more questions next month, and we'll ratify next month. Okay, we'll move on to rotting along quickly today. We will move on to item number 5, which is also a discussion topic. This is a resolution, basically acknowledging and thanking me. Acknowledging the increase in our grant we got in 2024 and basically outlining the work we've been able to do because of the grant increase and also looking forward to 2025. So our understanding is the budget was passed yesterday, which included the grant we asked for. We'll get detailed confirmation of that in the next week or so. So this, again, this resolution is just outlining, basically acknowledging the increase, acknowledging the work you've been able to do with the increase. So it's kind of, it's not exactly a report, it's more of a thank you. But we thought this would be a good thing to move forward with and continue to do in the future as we encompass more work and provide more services to the community councils. Yeah. Sorry, can we, when you're setting, do you want to just introduce yourself as well to the body?
Sure.
Thank you. You can take photos.
I'm Sarah Prescott from Spinard.
Sure. Thank you. Welcome. So again, this is more of an introduction. So if there are any comments or thoughts on the language or anything we should add, anything we should modify, feedback is welcome either now or to us or to Ari over the next few weeks, and then we will take action on it next month.
And it says 2025 under the assumption that we are getting our increase, and if that isn't true, we can definitely evaluate it next month. If you have a question.
Well, because didn't we propose like two options, right, where we were gonna do it, so we don't know which one of the two we got?
So my understanding was that they put in our request for increase, but we also gave them a version without the increase. That way they were ready with both information. But our understanding as far as the clerk has told us is that they put in our increase, so.
Okay. We'll just need confirmation. The budget as presented was passed yesterday by the assembly. So.
I didn't want to bother the clerk today.
Well, please go ahead.
Yeah, just a small typo on the vote in favor or opposed. Abstained is spelled incorrectly.
Thank you. Abstained.
Just one question. Yeah, sure.
What was the percent increase from 24 to the asking 25?
It was 40,000-ish. I don't know what the percent was. 16?
Yes,
It was
16. Yeah.
Chair, I didn't watch the assembly meeting last night or attend, so was there any discussion specifically, or was this just kind of?
There was no discussion specifically on any part of the assembly budget, which includes the clerk's budget.
Okay, thank you.
This is just an introduction and setting aside, or are we
going through the lesson, right? That's the intention. The intention is to introduce it and make it available for people to look at, and then we will have a discussion, including
And
possible
ratification
changes.
at the
Ratification
next
next time.
And I guess if you have feedback on either and you want to submit it in advance, you can email us. And we'll make sure to bring it to the executive committee and they will decide on updates. Yeah. But we're trying to introduce stuff so you guys have time to read it before we ask for a vote.
And there is a December meeting, right?
Yes.
Gotta wrap up the end of the year.
Yeah, just a couple things in the past we did have, and then we have a few things together.
Okay, so I think we can actually move on to number 6. So that's comment period. This is comment on the board activities. So the FCC part of it, the non-profit part of it. And a couple of quick comments. Sorry, I don't know why my voice is. So I have a couple of quick comments. First of all, I know that I wasn't able to come to the last couple of training events, but I understand they went very well. So I'd like to just issue a general thanks to both people who attended and for staff who running those. There was also some two board training events, which I was able to attend, and I know I learned quite a lot from both of those. And that again, I think is informing some of the changes we're making in the first part of the meeting to be more focused on FCC internal operations, policies, etc. Okay, does anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, just want to thank both of you for helping organize that meetup with the housing club. I wish more of us could have been there, but it was good to get people in the same room and talk things out. I think it was a good event.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
And I will just say we're aware of the audio issue on the last training video and I'm working with the presenters on a document with the takeaways. I'm just waiting on their edits and then we'll publish that so that if you can't understand, I can kind of understand them. So I'm leaving the video up because you might glean something, but we'll make sure that there's a takeaway with some of the gems that the presenters wanted to provide, and then our hope is to have this be a continuing conversation, so it won't be the only recording. We learned quite a bit from how to do all of the elements of these trainings.
Any other comments people would like to the FCC side of things? Seeing any? So in that case, we've managed to complete the board part in half an hour, which is, I'm not sure if it's a record, but it's definitely, I think, faster than we expected. So in that case, I think we effectively go into recess. We're not going to start the second one until 7 o'clock.
We could start early if we wanted to reorder. Yeah, we could reorder too and do the capital updates first, since people are present.
That makes sense, actually.
Give people.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's suggest that then, if anyone would like to move that we continue the meeting and reorganize or reorder our agenda. So we start with item number 3, which is council updates. This is another change we've made and suggested. So rather than going through all the councils at every meeting, we're sort of cycling through councils. So I think it's is it a quarter or a third?
It's a
quarter. Okay. So either every 3 or 4 months, every council will come up with they can present anything that's important, urgent, timely. If any council wants to bring up, we can add as well. But typically, it will be the second council listed at the bottom. So again, if anyone wants to move that we reorganize our agenda.
This is Amanda. I move that we reorganize the agenda and start with council updates.
Okay, I'll second. Thank you very much. And I'll do this by consent. So unless I hear nobody objects, we will do that. So we'll move on to council updates. So I'll hand it over to
Excuse me, Mike. Mike,
Sure.
this is Mike from Rabbit Creek. I had a question.
Yeah,
Is this
please.
recorded?
Yes.
Okay, good. We've got our president coming at 7, and I wanted to make sure she'd be able to catch up. Thank you.
Yes.
If anyone arrives later with the intention of giving council update, we will give them space at the end as well.
Yeah,
Very
so
good.
as Mike said, we're just doing about a quarter of councils. They're listed at the bottom of the agenda. They go alphabetically. You have about a minute. This is so we keep the time to 15 minutes and can stay on schedule. And if anybody has anything timely or urgent that they want to bring up, we'll have room at the end to kind of wave. Today we have plenty of room. So starting with Abbott Loop.
Yeah, I'm Lizzie Noel with Abbott Loop, let me see, we've been moving our meetings around. We just had ours last week, so it didn't conflict with Thanksgiving and the school play, which is happening tomorrow, Code and Frog. Then we are not going to meet again till the end of January. So we've got a big, long period. Our major concerns seem to be remain. We would, the pedestrian crossings. We still want to figure out what's going on. Get a, safe pedestrian crossings into our parks, which are the Abbott Loop Community Park and Ruthven and So yeah, we have Brian from DOT come visit, and we have the some of the folks in the fire safety team.
Thank you.
Airport Heights.
No update from me.
Hey, Don, do you have any updates?
Yeah, we are still very focused on wildfire mitigation, and the single access to Basher issue, and that's been ongoing, but that was a big part of our meeting, which was last Thursday. And no real progress on either, but it looks like we'll be cutting a swath. Again, we haven't had one done, a barrier swath in 10 years. It looks like it'll be done next spring. I'm not sure. We're checking. And we did discuss the community boundaries councils, because there's a portion of Basher that's actually in the state park, the Chugach State Park, and that became a discussion. We discussed it with the assembly member that was present, George Martinez, and we discussed some other boundary changes along the Campbell Strip Road that are really more our interest than others, because the boundary apparently was set way back on the front end of Campbell Strip Road. And that's about it.
Thank you. Bay Shore Clat. Oh, I don't think they're here. Okay. Bear Valley also not here, and Birchwood not here. Campbell Park.
We will meet tomorrow night, and at our last meeting for October, definitely pedestrian safety and some of the deaths that have happened were one of the big topics. And part of the reason the gentleman Tony is behind me here is that he and I are worked a little bit on a resolution that we want to bring forward on that subject. Also, we had discussion of trying to get where there is sidewalks them a little more clean, because Tudor is pretty dangerous right now, especially right shortly after snow falls. There really is no place for people to walk, and it's hard sometimes for them to get across. We've talked about the enforcement of speed limits. We know that's unrealistic, that the speed can or will be probably reduced, but we feel like maybe the speed limit should be enforced. And so tomorrow night, I'm sure we'll have a little more discussion of that. And we do not meet in December, and in January we have our elections. And I invited Johnny tonight because he is interested in potentially either being or sharing this delegate position with me going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Chukiak.
Yeah, we have our meeting tomorrow night. Probably the biggest things we're working on right now is some guardrail areas here out in Chugiak where we have vehicles leaving the road. And then the council boundary maps with Tom Davis. So I have a phone call into him to get some more information. It looks like we're trying to push out into the inlet a little bit. I'm not sure why. So, but beyond that, we probably will not meet in December, and we're still we did not have a quorum last month, so we weren't able to vote on our new start time, but we're planning to vote on that tomorrow night to begin our start time now at 6:30 instead of 7. That's about it for Chugiak.
Thank you. No downtown, so Eagle River.
Hi, from Eagle River. A couple resolutions on our radar. We're watching an issue with the casino being built by Klutna out in the Birchwood area. We're talking with the Birchwood Community Council on that. We're watching that. We have 2 housing developments happening in Eagle River. Quite a few homes being built. We're watching that. We did submit a resolution concerning Parks and Rec support out here. I don't know how many folks are aware. We have our own Parks and Rec out here, supported by the municipality. And we had some problems and issues, and we submitted a resolution on that. Looking at our CIP priorities, that's just constantly changing, making sure our community members are aware of that. And then we also have our January elections. So we're doing the nominations in December, and hopefully good elections in January. Thank you.
And I just want to acknowledge Penny Gage from North Star Community Council is entering online. Eagle River Valley. Alex jump off? He might have. Okay, looks like Alex jumped off. And Klutna's not here, so Fairview.
So Fairview, we had at our November meeting, we had a presentation from Lieutenant with Anchorage Police Department about the mobile intervention team and about the Hope team that they're doing pretty well, out there. We had presentation on Eastchester Park master plan that's out for community review, and had an update on our reconnecting Fairview grant work and activities, and an update on our ARP grant, the Fairview Snow Fighters activities, and we had meetings. We have a meeting coming up with a big public meeting regarding DOT on December 10th at the Anchorage Senior Center, looking at alternatives for that Seward to Glen, connection. Anybody who's interested in that should probably look at attending that event. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, when we have a holiday party at our December meeting, which is the 12th of December, we're gonna have a nice holiday party. So.
Lovely. Thank you. And Alex from Eagle River Valley just rejoined, so I wanted to give him an opportunity.
Sorry about that. Just heard a whoosh. My computer decided to shut down. Yes, I was actually unable to attend my last community council because I was out of the state, but they did kind of one issue that they've been discussing for a while is the Ram Valley Access Trail, kind of potentially part of the Alaska Long Trail, kind of getting a little bit contentious of where they might put that and how people might be affected. But other than that, no updates from us.
Were there any other councils that would like to say something that's urgent, timely, or of interest to the whole body? Patrick?
We Scenic Foothills has moved to hold our December 5th, our executive meeting to a regular meeting to address 2 important topics. One's the school closure we looked at the school map, and if you put a dot in the middle of 3 of the schools, it's within 1.5 miles of that dot in a circular section, for scenic foothills and Northeast Community Council. So we, put a draft resolution out for notice, and we're gonna be, voting on that on December 5th. And then the other one, which is the wildland fire suppression, to support our friends up in Basher on that. The council was taken back that there was no public process on that. Even though we support it, we were kind of blindsided. We do know that John was only 7 days on the job when he presented here, so we'll cut him some slack.
Thank you. We'll go to online, Mike Kenny.
Yeah, I just wanted to, a quick report on Rabbit Creek. We're very, very concerned in our last meeting about the closure of tentative closure of Bear Valley Elementary School. A lot of the logarithm that was used to determine the closures really had very little contact with us. We have approximately 35% of our land at grades up to 25%. There's no school buses. To have kids walking up those or having parents driving up them, having them get in a school bus and going wherever. It's just, it's very dangerous. Bear Valley meets all the metrics that we could find. So anyway, I know Bear Valley Community Council also had the same problem.
Thank you. Was that Kathy?
Yeah, with regard to the CIP proposed boundary changes, I was wondering if the downtown and South Addition, Turnigan, Sam Lake, and then I'm not sure south, where there's a proposal to decrease the areas along the coast so that the mean high tide is changed and mud flats, a big chunk of the mud flats and low tide are taken out of our council boundaries. So I don't know how many caught that, but that would be what we'd have. Based on the map that we saw, the proposal, Turnigan loses a fair amount of square footage, square foot footage along the coast. And you think, well, who cares? It's the land where things going on, but that's not necessarily true. And a big example of that was quite a few years ago when jet fuel pipeline was buried in the mud flats from, the port to the airport. And there was significant interest in those mud flats and then, how that was going to process, how that was going to work and remediation. And we as a council, along with the other coastal councils, could weigh in on that because that was part of our boundaries. If they remove that as one of the proposals, if the councils that would be affected, we have some concern. So we discussed that at our our November meeting earlier this month. And we're going to pass a resolution, hopefully at our December, to oppose that proposal. And I was wondering if any of the other coastal community councils caught that as something that and if they have any thoughts. So it'd be downtown, South Addition, Turnigan, Sand Lake, and then I'm not, which councils are past Sand Lake? I'd have to look at a map. Ocean View. Flat. Yeah. So is there anybody representing those councils that have any thoughts on that?
I don't represent those councils, but I have a question and kind of a concern. So what you're saying is basically, currently there's a utility right of way through the mud flats for that pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
And that's within the boundary of those coastal councils, correct?
Yeah. But it wouldn't be otherwise. And that's just
So
one
then
example.
if they decide to put another utility or pipeline in that same corridor because it is available for that, that would mean that they would not have to get council approval or appear before councils in order to complete their legal process, right?
Yeah,
Permitting.
and yeah, and as you get to like point warrants off and, you know, airport activities and then it's part of, you know, Anchorage Coastal Wildlife Refuge that also, you know, is designated that, but some of those mud flats are within the, you know, Sand Lake and turning in boundaries, and that would all go away. And so, I mean, there was just, over the decades, there's been a handful of times where things happen out in the, you know, low tide mud flats that are in our council area that wouldn't be moving forward if that. And I don't know why that is proposed to be changed, but I would hope that maybe other councils who are in that coastal area would like to, you know, give me a call or something and chat about it.
Well, no, I'm in South Edition and we have Tom Davis coming to explain the proposed changes tomorrow. And that's the question I will.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
If you could share the answer, I think that is, I don't recall that being one of the topics in the boundary changes committee, but I did attend all, so maybe. I think actually at least one member online, I think, was on the boundary change committee, so the working group. So maybe somebody else has some more comments on this.
John, if you do get an answer and you want to send it to me, I'm happy to forward it to the delegates.
Good question, thank you. Any other comments from councils? If not, then I would ask, we do have, I think, some guests who are not here yet and some guests who are.
I see Chris.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead, Chris. Chris, can you hear us?
Did you call on me? I'm hearing deficits. I don't catch
Did you
everything.
have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I didn't give a report. Midtown Community Council is in the midst of a Midtown District Plan, and as far as our council goes, we have written and passed our vision statements for the next 20 years. We have written and passed our goals and our actions, and within the actions, we have highlighted 3-year goals within those actions. So that is moving ahead for our community council. There's 2 other councils involved with it, and they are doing the same thing. The other exciting thing for us is, and this is great for this meeting, we didn't know that we could add to the CIP. So Felix Rivera helped us, Meg Zalatel helped us, and last night they added some money in for a chalet at Cuddy Park. And this chalet work, people have been working on it for over 40 years. And hopefully we're going to get this thing built in the next couple of years. We still need more money, but through the grace of Meg and Felix, we got a couple steps ahead last night. So that's all for us.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to suggest, again, we have some guests who are not here yet. So I think probably the right thing to do now is to take effectively a 13-minute recess. 13.
Oh.
Just until, or 11 minutes now. The last time I looked at my watch, it was 2 minutes. So if anyone would like to move that, then we'll reestablish it.
Is Barbara Jones still here?
Yes, Barbara is here.
Okay, because I think she was going to give a report from the mayor's office.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't thinking that.
And maybe she could go now.
I think that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll jump into the mayor's report then. So Barbara, take it away. We're not hearing you.
Okay, you know that tricky unmute thing, right?
Right, this technology is very new to all of us, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, hello everyone. It's really fun I'm Barbara Jones. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff for the mayor, and it's really fun to listen to you and see so many friends and folks I've known over the years. So it's just cool now to be presenting to the FCC, and I love your new agenda. Good work. So the report that I have on behalf of the mayor is that the 2025 budget was unanimously approved by the Assembly last night, which some of you know about. I think it's important. I've talked to you before about Mayor LaFrance's priorities and goals, and I think this is a good time to say how the budget addresses those priorities and goals. So first, it addresses safe streets and trails. It addresses homelessness head on by increasing camp cleanup. And that's through the Healthy Spaces Initiative. We've added funding for staffing to that group. The budget provides year-round shelter at 56th Avenue with the matching state funds, among other features. The budget also prioritized public safety. It expanded the mobile crisis team to 24 hours, and it fully funds the Anchorage Safety Patrol, some of which I know you're familiar with. The mayor's next priority, good government, also was funded in the budget. The mayor used the budget to make jobs more competitive by adjusting wages for snowplow operators and other non-represented and executive employees. The budget is looking to secure large federal and state investments for infrastructure dollars, and it's doing that through a new grants team. And the last of the mayor's priorities, you know, is building our future. And the general operating budget is under the tax cap. And I know some of you have talked about the 2025 capital budget. Those priorities include parks and trails, revitalizing Town Square Park, traffic calming and pedestrian safety, which you've talked about, critical road and drainage work, improving Chugach State Park access, senior center upgrades, and other public safety investments, including emergency vehicles. So the mayor's budget is a vision for the future. The investments are long-range strategies, and they're a stepping stone toward a better future for Anchorage. So if you have any questions, you can let me know. Or if you have questions about something else, I will do my best to find someone that can help you.
Thank you. Are there any questions in the room?
I have one.
Please go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, so Jason Norris from Helpman O'Malley, you said that the grants team is working to secure infrastructure dollars. I was wondering if there are any particularly notable projects that you're targeting for that.
Well, it's going to be a new grants team. It hasn't been formed yet. So I do not know the answer to that, but I can follow up with you and put you in touch with the folks that are going to be working on that directly. Or we could follow up maybe in January. We could probably give you, either Marie or I'll get back to you and let you know what that looks like after the budget's been implemented.
Okay, thank you.
And would you tell me your name again so I remember that?
Yeah, it's Jason Norris.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Jason.
Well, Kathy, question?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Jason, because I've got a follow-up. With regard to who chooses, these projects, and because we were kind of just discussing a little bit about the 3% sales tax proposal and the 11 projects that are proposed under that, and how did they get chosen? And some are questionable in terms of we're not taking care of what we have now infrastructure wise, and then if there's a lot of money and proposals to develop new ones, which is, at the 40,000 foot level, wonderful, but at the ground level, We're not even taking care of what we have. And so how do we
Can
balance?
I think a point of information, the Project Anchorage is not part of the mayor's budget. It is a separate item, and so
Yeah,
I know, but
excuse me.
so those projects weren't selected as part of the mayor's budget.
Yeah, excuse me, Amanda, that wasn't what I implied. We gave it as another example in addition to this new team applying for grants. And how do projects get chosen? Is there any kind of public dialogue and process involved, or is it done internally?
Kathy, that is a good follow-up question. I will also direct that to the new grants team, and hopefully we'll have an answer in January when we know more about what that's going to look like.
That'd be great, Garth. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Any other questions? Not seeing any in the room or online. Sorry we're jumping around a little bit tonight, but in our council updates earlier, Bear Valley was on the list of councils we'd like to get an update from tonight, and I see that. Sorry. Okay, Penny, let's go you first. Penny, do you have a question for the mayor's office?
Yeah, thank you. I didn't have the raise hand. I put a question in the chat, but did not use the raise hand function. Ariana attempted to answer it, I think, but just if the increased FCC budget was approved in this budget. We understand the FCC made an increase slightly higher to support more staff and programming, and I think this group is very curious to know if that was included.
Well, this is Barbara, and obviously I should have known that before I came to report to you, but I am sorry, I do not know that. May I send an email to Ariana about that tomorrow?
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, it's no problem. There's a lot in the budget.
All right, will do.
Thank you for asking that question. So jumping back, we do have Caitlin Jackson from Bear Valley who's joined us. So Caitlin, we actually moved a few things around because we got through the first part of the agenda very quickly. So we've already gone through council updates, and Bear Valley was one of the councils we were going to ask. So if you have anything as a council update to share with us, now would be a good opportunity.
Thank you for jumping back to me. I'm sorry for joining in late. Our meeting was mostly around that school closure. So just trying to get everybody in the same spot on it and understand kind of what's going on and what the options are. But that was our focus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we would now go on to assembly or school board. Typically, I do not see representatives from either body here yet, but we're 2 minutes early. So we could either wait 2 minutes or jump to the next item, which would be item 4, CIP training. Which else, again, if anybody wants to make a move to jump to item 4, we can do so. You know, we did get an apologies from the other two. Okay, so they should be here next meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, sometimes they tell me, sometimes they don't.
Was it a late meeting last night?
I don't. Not really.
I left early.
No. I mean, I've seen them go later, but it's midnight, but no, it was over by the time I logged in at like 10:30 maybe.
We got like 1 minute. We'll just hang out.
Yeah, I'll say that. Brief and easy.
30 seconds.
Brief,
Talk amongst
exactly,
yourselves. Yeah.
Is the mayor's office appointing someone who is going to attend community council meetings?
Not that I don't.
Would Barb know?
Yeah, maybe. Barb, are you still online? We have a follow-up question if you don't mind.
Yes, I am here.
This is John Thurber from South Edition. And in the past, we had routine attendance at our community council meetings from someone from the mayor's office. Is there an intent in the future to continue that practice?
I would say that we're looking at it. How many community councils are there?
Only 37.
Yeah. Well,
Next year.
right. So, and the prior administration attended all of those?
They routine attended, my community council meetings, and I was just wondering if that was going to be an option in the future.
Thank you.
And someone did Trinidad most of the time as well for a while.
They did, we only had one from the mayor attending once in my memory, so.
I see questions from,
But does she have sorry, I just want to make sure Barb had a chance to answer.
yeah, also.
Thank you. Thank you. So, we are looking at what we can do about that. And I think that maybe after the first of the year, so either in January, Marie or I can give you an update about that.
Thank you.
I should say there are only 10 employees in the mayor's office. And so you can imagine 37, that would mean each of us would have to attend 3 to 4 community council meetings a month. And so I think logistically it could be complicated, but we're still looking at it. You bet.
I see question from Chris and Penny. Let's Chris first.
Hi, thank you. Hey, Barb, this is Chris Stoner from Midtown. We always had someone from the mayor's office come into our meetings, and it was extremely helpful and important because of the issues that we've had with homelessness in Midtown for the last couple of years. And what it actually ended up being is we had a monthly meeting with the mayor because of all those issues. But in the meantime, the mayor's representatives still came to our meeting. So we had 2 contacts a month with the mayor. And we would really appreciate someone coming in.
Thank you, Chris.
And we appreciate the idea of you talking about it because we need your help.
Thank you. Penny?
Yeah, I guess I'll be the flip side of that. I represent North Star Community Council. We are the smallest community council, and in my tenure, I have never seen a mayor's office representative. I also think the Bronson administration was a little more challenging, at least for us, to get someone there on homelessness. So I totally understand the capacity issue. I think it's even challenging for our representatives and senators to attend every meeting, and they often send staff or just one attends. So I would kind of defer to you. I would heartily endorse your team making a decision that makes sense, and perhaps attending the FCC meeting is how you interact with the community councils, or reports are sent out that we can distribute, or we invite you for particular topics. But not every meeting is groundbreaking and needs, merits the attendance of your team, would be my perspective when you have a lot of other big priorities. But that's just how things have happened with North Star. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Basha?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, because Barb thought about 37 meetings that have to split, but many councils don't meet every month. Ours meets a maximum of 4 times a year. And I think there are others that don't meet all the time. So it wouldn't be quite as bad as Barb thought, not as overwhelming, but it's still a task, but it's not as overwhelming as Barb originally thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess we could say that, we're moving to a model where we don't get updates from every council every month. So, perhaps if it was if you had a schedule where you visited every community council every 2 or 3 months, that might reduce the reduce the load a little bit on the farm.
I just have one comment.
Please, go ahead.
I'm Bruce with the Hillside Community Council, and I would just say that the previous two administrations, we had a regular visitor from the mayor's office that would give us a report, and it was very informative. Certainly there were, we probably meet more than most of the rest. We try to meet at least 10 or 11 times a year, but yeah, I mean, if that practice continue, even if it's just, we send out a notice and for an ask, could you please have someone? That would be a great alternative if they can't staff that.
Daryl Parks from Chukiak says, Chukiak routinely, though maybe not monthly, had the mayor's office, ASD, and our state reps attend. Where we struggle to get, what we struggle to get is APD to attend.
The sense I'm getting is, I think it varies for community council. I don't think we ever had a mayor representative for the previous administration for at least a couple of years. So I think somebody else got two, so maybe they got ours. Go ahead.
Russian Jack has had people from the mayor's office off and on, but Barb, we've actually had not in November, but in October, the mayor's office came to our meeting for the homelessness issue that we were having. So you have come to some of them already.
That's good.
Yes, we have.
And the question that I've got, because not all the presidents are in the room, is just how can they ask, especially if they have a topic at hand? And I know Marie's email has been given, but there's not always a response there. So how any sort of like clarification on that process would always be helpful. Jill Klein says, Rogers Park invited Farina Brown from the Lit France administration, and she attended as well.
Thank you. Obviously, there is a lot of interest, Barbara, for your sensing that.
Yes,
Okay.
and we already have started work on it. So I'll make a commitment to make some progress on this in the next month, and we'll report back to you. Well, in January. I don't know if you meet in December, but it'll be January.
Thank you. We are meeting in December, but we appreciate your response in January. Thank you. Okay. We are now past 7 o'clock. I don't see, is there anyone from school board or? Okay, I think there's interest in both of those topics, but since we don't have any representatives here from the school board or from the assembly, I would suggest we move forward to the CIP training. So Chelsea, would you like to join us and start this discussion? Thank you very much. It's a full hour for you. Yeah, that's right.
It won't take that long.
52 minutes.
I'm going to drop her presentation in the chat and then. Thank you.
Also joined by Taylor Keegan from Parks and Rec, who is
Oh, yeah, if Taylor wants to run it. Yeah.
Just one quick question logistically. Would you prefer to take questions during the presentation or at the end?
open to it.
Okay.
It may make sense for us to get through the presentation and then cover questions,
Okay.
Because questions may get answered in the presentation, but if folks have urgent questions.
Thank you.
And Taylor, the floor is yours for the screen.
As Taylor's working on that, I will just introduce myself. I'm Chelsea Ward-Waller. I work for the municipality. I'm the capital improvement program coordinator for Public Works. Taking that hat off really quickly, I'm also the Airport Heights Community Council president and was on the FCC for at least a year, if not multiple. So I'm very familiar with all things community council and CIP is how I got involved in both of those things. And I'm joined by Taylor Keegan. Taylor, go for it.
Hi, I'm Taylor Keegan. I'm attending remotely because I have a little tickle in my throat and I don't want to get anybody sick. So thanks for having this hybrid ability here. But I've been with the Parks and Recreation Department since 2015. I was a park planner and a landscape architect for many years. And this past Christmas, I started to be the superintendent and dive into the CIP process. And I just want to thank Chelsea for letting me tag along and share what Parks and Rec does and try to answer any questions with regard to the CIP process. So thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Awesome, thanks, Taylor. So the next slide is just a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. From the public works perspective, we'll talk about how we identify needs. We'll talk about the annual programs. We'll talk about our sort of CIP timeline throughout the whole year. And then I'll also mention how we evaluate projects. And then for Parks and Rec.
Yes. So for us, we'll talk about internal needs. Really, it's for us too about encouraging partnerships, not only with community councils, but our nonprofit partner like the Anchorage Park Foundation. And in the past, I know that the CIP process has been confusing. And so one of my goals at Parks and Recreation is to try to build some transparency with this process. And so hopefully that starts with our presentation today.
Awesome. And then I also just want to mention that Public Works and Parks and Rec are not the only two departments in the municipality that have capital projects. So we're going to cover what we know and touch, but just know that there's a lot more to the CIP than road projects and park projects.
And I will say DOT is probably also going to come and do a presentation about how it affects them. Great.
We know when that will be.
No, we haven't said, but in the new year, I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Oh, and that's, I guess, just on that note as well, we do plan to come back when the CIP survey is open to provide a more like hands-on CIP survey training. So today we're talking more sort of conceptually and about the whole, how it all fits together. And then when that survey is launched, we'll dive into sort of how to do the survey itself and then also be available for sort of technical assistance throughout the life of the survey.
The first of a few trainings.
Yes. Yeah, part one. Okay, so next slide is just a pretty picture slide. The example from 30th Avenue, how do we get there? The CIP process is how we got from A to B in terms of programming, funding, and making a project happen. So that's mostly just because we like pictures of our projects. Thank you for indulging us. So for Public Works, there's a lot of ways that needs are identified. Firstly, the community council surveys, we hear from assembly members and legislators and constituents. We hear administration priorities. You just heard about the budget. They have specific priorities. We know we have adopted plans and programs. You heard about the Midtown plan. There are probably going to be projects that come out of that plan that will then feed into the projects that we then need to program. We have acts of nature or emergent situations. You may remember the Northern Lights Boulevard culvert that collapsed a couple of years ago. That was a massive project that wasn't on anybody's radar, but we still had to program that and address it. And then we also, street maintenance is out there. They're plowing our roads right now, but in the summer they're out there driving around sweeping and filling potholes, and they identify a huge portion of the projects that we end up programming through Public Works, just because they are the eyes on the street. And then, so we also, one example, we do a survey every 3 years of road conditions in the municipality that grades every road in terms of its condition. So that's just another way that either helps sort of corroborate the feedback that we're getting from the community or from street maintenance, or it helps sort of flag maybe a whole subdivision is having a bad issue and therefore we need to focus on that area. It's just kind of an additional check, and it's also required. It's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and somehow it's like related to our bonding ability. So that's great. And just a side note on that, because I'm a total transportation dork, I believe through DOT, we're hoping to figure out how to do that for sidewalks and pathways. in the near future, which I think will be a huge benefit to everybody, to understand our condition of those facilities as well as just our roads that vehicles are driving on. All right, next slide just covers some of the annual programs that we're also funding through the CIP process, the capital improvement program process. We're covering safe routes to school, traffic calming. Both of those programs go through the traffic department. And then we have constantly trying to catch up on our ADA compliance, which we are very in non-compliant, but we are working on it every year. And thank you for funding the bond so that we can do that. We also have programs that go to watershed management, and also Alaska Railroad. We have a required agreement that we help maintain their facilities on their tracks across our facilities. So those are some of the annual programs. And then next slide, Taylor, thank you so much for running the slides. This is our CIP timeline, and I'm going to show it two different ways. So this will be one slide. The next slide will say basically the same thing, but in a different format, lots of different learners, and just different ways to say the same thing. But basically, I really want to flag, many of you are probably familiar with the CIP process and how it works. And I really want to flag that this year, something that's been a request, I believe, of community councils and also of the assembly, is that we better adjust our timeline for community councils and provide enough time to submit the surveys. And so we were previously, doing the CIP survey sort of in the March to June timeline. I don't think it was ever exactly over those 4 months, but somewhere in there, it's generally been that way for the last few years, at least as long as I've been involved in it. This year, we're going to try to move it forward and launch it in January, such that you can see, you just have, I guess, you may or may not have more time with it, but hopefully it better aligns. I know for me, I get at Airport Heights Community Council, I get requests from our legislators about our capital projects to send to the legislature for those requests. And it would be great for us to see those lists at that time so that we can figure out, this project isn't moving in the municipality program, so I want to send this to the legislature or something like that. So I think it's going to help all of us, and I'm excited about it. So basically that's going to force me in my professional life to make sure that the project list is ready to go next month so that we can have the survey ready. Then once the survey is closed, we will, as departments, will go through and evaluate and rank them with that input, as well as our other metrics that we rank them, and I will cover that in a minute. Then we work with, we pull together our whole program based on how those projects get ranked. We give that information to OMB. OMB and the administration sort of finesse that list to come up with what they presented to the assembly. We present it to planning and zoning, which we were a little bit late and did that on Monday this week. It should be in October, but we have a new administration this year, so no worries. Got through planning and zoning. It was approved by the assembly last night. And then again, in the new year, we'll reach back out to our legislators from a municipality perspective and work on those CAPSIS requests just as community councils do. So if you go to the next slide. Oh,
And it's good to see
sorry,
you.
Taylor, can you go back?
Thanks for coming. Good to see you again.
Yes, likewise.
So and I realized that it was kind of forward looking, like trying to give us the year there, right?
Yep.
But you see the one block, dark blue there in November. And I think you were just speaking about a little bit. So let's just pretend you just took that one block and I was gonna get up tomorrow and go look to find out what happened? What happened in November there then, since we're in November? Where would I find that list? How do we find out about it? And what indeed actually did happen last night?
So I'm guessing it's not yet, the approved list is not yet on the OMB website, but the OMB website is the best place to go. And I would be happy to share that link with you. I think it might just be muni.org/budget, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I think it's budget and then
you would go to the capital improvement program.
Yeah.
There will eventually be, right now it's just the proposed capital improvement program would be the link that you'd click on. there will eventually be also the approved capital improvement program that they'll add in there.
And part of the reason I'm asking is because November, I mean, when you look at that, you think, okay, we're coming to the end of the year or something. But this process, November is really not the end of anything. It's just the end of that section to lead in to what's gonna happen up there in the blue and January through however long the legislators in session, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of folks in community councils, they come to a meeting, they don't always attend a lot, and they say, this is the thing I'm really passionate about, put a speed bump on my street. Or, you know, fix this intersection, it's really bad. And they see their state legislator and they're going down in June and they're like, here, take this with you. And that's kind of a short circuit, because it looks like the way the process is supposed to work is councils pass resolutions, whatever, they fill out the CIP survey, which then gets vetted and goes through the process, the assembly, and then it becomes part of the city's request that goes in CAPSIS. So it sounds like in order for it to be like a community vetted project that the legislature might fund, it probably takes about a year. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
Yep, so, thank you, Daniel. The question that I got, that I had on the top of my notes was the question we also get is, why isn't my project in next year's bond package? Well, it sort of takes a little while for a project to get legs, right? You have to introduce it, you have to get that community feedback. Projects are more successful if they have more community support. So as much as we do honor when we hear from individual residents about issues, we absolutely honor those questions and concerns. But if it comes in from a resident and then also has the support of the community council, that project is more likely to move forward. And that does take time, and it also takes the whole cycle to sort of get involved.
So what
Sorry,
you're,
can we take a question from Chris? Chris asked a question online. Go ahead. Chris,
Are
can
you?
thank you. Yeah, we can
Thank
hear
you.
you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your help for my hearing issues. I am really confused because Meg Zalatil told me yesterday that January is when we start going out to the public and we ask the public what they want. And we create a list in our community council that goes with whatever the government gives us. And I don't see that anywhere in this process. So my community council has had problems with this every single year. We have to beg and look and spend hours trying to find out where our list is because it's not given to us. And then when it's time to submit the list, the people who are trying to submit it are not allowed electronically to do it. And I know this year I ended up doing it and it still was not received. So there's some bumps in the road, and I really want to know about when CCs are supposed to go out to the public and ask them for what they want. And a prime example would be the Cuddy Chalet that we mentioned earlier. That has been worked on for 40 some years. We would like to see it on the list. How is it going to get on that list? What I'm seeing is there's a whole lot of public employees putting together lists and this and that, and the public is not working with the new items. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
So Chris, thank you for that concern. I agree. This process has not always been smooth. Like I said, I have the community council perspective as well, and absolutely agree with you that it hasn't always been easy to understand how it all works. And I think that's why we're here tonight, to sort of give some of the background and some of the sort of foundational knowledge, and then we will come back, or at least I will come back. I'm not sure Taylor's capacity. I know that she's much busier than I am, but I will come back and be available not only to give a training once the survey goes live, but also provide sort of that technical assistance to help individual councils submit their surveys. And I would say, Chris, when you're interested in going out to the public for feedback, it would be great to do that once that survey is available, because then you'll have that list of projects that are proposed either previously from your council or from the municipality. And you could share that with folks and either decide, these are the projects we want to keep or not, or projects we want to add. So that's going to be that January to April timeframe this coming year.
Well, it needs to be put on your chart because we're going out to the public in January and we're going to ask them, what would you like on the CIP? We don't know what the public wants. And they should have the opportunity to come to the community council and tell us what they want. And then we should be able to send that to the city at some point, and then you work it in that list that we're going to rank.
Fair enough. I totally understand your point. This is the public works timeline, so that's why it doesn't have the community council public involvement. But I appreciate you doing that work.
I just have one comment for Hillside Community Council. We basically send out a survey sometime in February for all the CIP stuff, and that survey is communicated to the council area. Then we take that information and incorporate it based upon what we have on our to-do list, and pretty consistently we get some trends that make a lot of sense. There's issues with safety and pedestrian safety, child safety, that kind of stuff. So I would suggest that maybe just add a line onto that one, just says community council, and just add a placeholder for community survey stuff.
There was no place to add anything when we actually did the survey. You did the survey, let's pretend you had 10 items, you ranked 10 items, that was it, period. We could not put comments in, we could not put anything in. We made many, many phone calls trying to find out, how do we add to this? How do we ask questions about this? And nobody knew. So how is Hillside managing that? It would be helpful to know.
So I think he was speaking that they put out their own survey as a community council. That's what Airport Heights does as well, although we have way too many projects on our list, so it's kind of a bear. But yeah, there are lots of ways to solicit feedback. Absolutely.
Rogers Park says that they do the same. Great.
Joe, did you have a question?
Yes, so the current projects that you're working on today, when were those approved?
Current projects like that got constructed this summer, for example?
Or what you're working on today, when did that formally get approved that the public could view and go, oh, this is what they're currently working on this year?
Over the last 20 years, probably. Video projects going back more than 20 years.
I think that's what's so confusing to the average person to understand this.
And one of the things we want to do in the new year is do like a public outreach about CIP, so that kind of an education about it that's aimed at people who maybe aren't involved in councils, and explain the process is something you and I have talked about as well.
I just have, there are several more questions.
Well, yeah, so you've got from January to April, the process for community council survey. So what is the new deadline? Usually it's June 15th, it comes out in February, March. And so now what are you looking at with this new timeline, the submittal deadline for 2025?
So I'm not gonna make any promises on the date that we're gonna get the survey live. Again, new administration, so everybody's working furiously to make all the changes that are being requested. And I know that this will have a big impact on community councils. I know it will have a big impact on my community council. So I really want to make this happen, but it is contingent on IT, because IT develops the survey.
To be announced.
Yep.
Okay.
But I think we understand also that, community councils have a process, and so ideally it would be open for 4 months, regardless of when it's launched.
Okay.
If it's January 1, it might end April 30th. If it's January 30th, it might end.
Okay. Okay, and then a quick follow-up. For years and years and years and years, there always ends up projects that are nowhere near turning in that are on our CIP list. So then I'm typically the one that does that. I have to go in there and type in, please remove this project. This is not within our area. The next year it's there again. Please remove this project. I've done it over and over and over again throughout the years, literally. How can that improve?
So that's one of the things that I'm hoping to work with IT on. What we'd like to do is, you may many of you have been involved in community councils for a long time. There used to be different categories in the survey. There was a PM&E category and a DOT category and a Parks and Rec category. And I think we'd like to bring that back. And what we might do is just put an area-wide category. And, you know, I don't know what projects are gonna end up on there, but it's something like the Campbell Creek Trail crossing of Lake Otis. You know,
Yes.
that is a project that affects the entire community because it connects all the trails together.
But you could say that about so many projects.
Sure.
All around town. It's
Sure.
just, it's kind
But
of a
it's an
burden.
example of a project, and if you don't wanna rank area-wide projects, you don't have to, but that would hopefully be its own category. Rather than mixing it in with all of the projects that are in your community back across that.
I will let you continue the presentation, but I did see two quick questions here that are just
Briefly answer, because, yeah, Kathy, as a former council president, I used to also have to go in and say, you know, highway to highway is still not our priority. Because it's an area-wide priority of the municipality. And so having that area-wide section makes a lot of sense, but to remove those items out of the system so they don't appear there gives the false impression that they're not still in the CIP. So they need to show up on the list somewhere, even if they're not your council's priority. You can rank them at the bottom if you want, but the municipality, the assembly, the administration have said these are still, or AMATs or DOT have said these are area-wide priorities, or, you know, Kabata, whatever it was, it might be controversial, was a large priority of maybe not just one community council. There was another question about, you know, where do we see these lists? Like, how does the full CIP come together? And I wish I'd brought the binder that,
This is just the PM&E project.
that's just the PM&E portion. That's the
2 pages printed.
This binder they presented on Monday in planning and zoning about yay thick, double-sided. And that's where it really comes together from the municipality side of things that the assembly approved. And then there's, of course, the consolidated legislative request from municipality to the state legislature. And that's where, you know, if you've ever worked in CAPSIS as a community council president before, you get to input your projects that way. And it has a little yes or no box. Is this community supported? Yes or no? And when you have the municipality of Anchorage coming in with their consolidated request to the legislature, that's, you know, the legislators, when they go in there and they actually submit their requests to the finance committee, they can say, yes, it is community supported. But there's really 2 times when the whole thing is put together, like when all the sausage is basically like in one spot, right? And that's when this municipality and the planning and zoning and the assembly approve it, and then if there's a consolidated request to the legislature, it gets.
I just have one comment, sir. John, it's Ricard here. So, just in regard to what's going on now, the municipality gets those bonds approved by the voters, but they don't necessarily execute on those particular contracts, depending on the conditions and the things that occur over time. So you can have a bond that was approved 5 years ago. It might just be started next year. Because there's no sunset clause in any of these, unfortunately. So that's kind of one of those things, at least in my research, I found out, is that if you really want to keep track of all that, you've got to really pay attention to it, because you could have a culvert replacement, you know, across C Street or something that was part of a bond that was placed 4 years ago, and they were just going through and doing portions of that. So that's one of the realities. So it's hard to answer that question. What gets funded next? The other comment I wanted to make is that I spoke to I spoke to Anna Brawley. She's the District 3 Assembly person, and she kind of explained the timeline on this. So once it gets approved, like for example, stuff's been approved this year, it's not until it has to go through, it'll be introduced in late December, according to her, and in early January, the need will be finalized by Tuesday, 1/21/25. And then it gets included on the 4/1/25 ballot. So that's the process. When you see all those projects that have been approved now that are approved for bonding, then they have to go through that process and then show up on the voter's ballot. And then, you know, depending on the need, urgency, and resources available, then those things get executed either in the following year or following years, depending on that kind of stuff. So anyway, I just want to clarify that, because it's really important on this timeline that, you know, you understand where it's going to happen at. So
we'll let you continue. Yes, thank you.
Okay, So as I mentioned, the next slide is really just the same process, just shown in a different visual way. I don't think we necessarily need to talk through it because I think we have, but this is why, you know, when you're submitting your survey, that's informing the next year's budget process. A little bit challenging to think about, you know, but that's just how the cycle works. So the next slide covers sort of the public works project evaluation process. And we bring together multiple different departments, representatives, and go through all of these criteria for the projects that we're ranking, because it is a very extensive process. We are not ranking every project every year. So we're not, you know, if a project got scored in the last couple of years, we're not going to go back and rescore it every single year. But these are the criteria that we are looking at when we're going through that process as a committee. And then I'll pass it over to Taylor.
Thanks, Chelsea. Parks and Recreation in the past did not have any type of scoring. It was a combination of using institution knowledge, I'm told, and basically looking at a combination of the things that we've now formalized in this scoring matrix. So for us, when we're putting something on our CIP, we're looking at a bunch of things. One, is it plan supported? Has there been public advocacy? And this looks like a challenge grant with Anchorage Park Foundation. It also looks like a letter of support from a community council or a user group. Is it a CIP survey request? And if so, how high up has it been ranked? Is it user group supported? So in this case, I'll use pickleball as an example. It's just it's a growing recreational activity in our community that we have not a lot of resources to accommodate those user groups. So that's like one example of, okay, we want to change a tennis court that has not many rentals and we want to move it into a pickleball or a mixed use court, you know, like what user group is supporting that resource? The other one is encourages health, safety, welfare. So really we're looking at playgrounds, like are they really old, or parking lots? Do we not have accessible parking spots that we can facilitate inclusive access? The environmental impact. This one is near and dear to my heart because I think we build a lot of things that in the wrong spot, maybe. So that makes it more expensive than maybe it needs to be or should be. Outside match. So examples of this would include private funds raised through the Anchorage Park Foundation, or even utilizing DOT and federal funds for outside match through the AMATS process. Does it support community resources? So we're looking at prioritizing those large community parks over maybe small pocket parks and neighborhood parks. Does it support communities of need? And this could mean a user group, like I used that pickleball example, or a specific population, like are there a lot of kids nearby? And then property ownership. There's a mix of things with parks land. We own the land, we lease the land. We have partnerships and things. And so for us, we want to make sure we're prioritizing investing bond dollars in the facilities that we own. That's not to say that legislative money or private funds can't be leveraged for those other projects, but when something is going from very start, like which really is the CIP survey and the things that the community brings to us, all the way to what ends up on the CIP, these are the factors that we're trying to rank and push out in a way that helps educate folks and gets to a place where we're making smart investments that are like Chelsea said, they're really supported by the community first and foremost, and then they're just smart to spend public dollars on. So thank you.
Yeah,
Cliff
so,
has a question online.
thank you. I'm wondering if actually it's the same question I'm about to ask. Go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, just a quick question on the Chugiak Eagle River Parks and Rec Board. Since it's separate from the municipality, is there a different CIP process for them? and how they rank, or is it fall in line with you guys? Do you work with them?
Cliff, that's a great question. So, and that's an important distinguishing thing. So, my position, I oversee Anchorage specific, so it's the Anchorage Bowl, and then my boss, the director of Parks and Recreation, oversees the municipality. So it's sort of split. So, Director Mike Braniff, then I oversee the Anchorage side of things, and then in Eagle River, there's a whole different group out there that does stuff. I shared the matrix and the scoring with Kelly when she was in that position, and she was really excited to bring this to the board. And I know Mike is planning on bringing it to the board once it gets to a place where I've basically worked through all the kinks. So yeah, Cliff, I hope that answers your question. But it's something that we're working through, and I believe will be coming out to Eagle River Chugiak in the next year.
Okay, that would be great. We just had our meeting last Thursday and it wasn't mentioned then. So thank you very much for the information.
Sure, and I'll follow up with Mike that we chatted.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask a similar question. I'm on the southern community side, not the northern community side, and I've always viewed the CIP process as a way that the Anchorage Bowl can prioritize all of its projects. And we're kind of either ignored or we have a separate process. And I've never understood whether they're supposed to be integrated or not. And it sounds like there is supposed to be some level of integration. I'm just not sure there ever has been and how it works. So the question is broader, but it's really the northern and southern communities having
Yeah, so.
similar questions.
So as Taylor mentioned for Parks and Rec, I think that's sort of what that department is the direction they're going. From Public Works. I can say that I work directly with Tony Windsor for the Bursa and then with Kyle Kelly from Birdwood to move forward the priorities that are coming from those service areas. So we really let them decide, and then we try to elevate them through the process.
And then the last thing is, sorry.
No, you're good.
The related thing is there a difference between the way things are prioritized if the funding comes from, bond or state or external or taxpayer funded internal?
Do you mean in terms of like projects moving forward?
In terms of how they're prioritized and how they sit. So when you have projects which are funded from, the capital component of the levies in Subversa or in Girdwood, are they scored differently? Or are they still scored against everything in the bowl, which comes from a different funding source?
So we don't, when we go through our project scoring process, we are almost entirely scoring ARDSA projects. And like I said, I will take projects that come from Tony from Subversa, and then I will take projects that come from Kyle from Bursa. Yeah.
There you go.
How can the public understand whether something is a capital project or just routine maintenance?
That is a great question that I am still trying to figure out. So, it is a project by project question. And I think.
So in my neighborhood, we have a deteriorated stairs. And at first it was said, well, it's just routine maintenance, we'll fix it. Then they go, no, it's not routine maintenance, it's a capital project. No, it's gonna be, it's just very confusing to know how we maintain what we have, I guess.
Yeah, and right now, given the way our funding structure is set up, we partially fund our maintenance department because they help us with capital projects. So there is there's just some challenging dynamics that we work with. And I would say that projects do evolve. You go in there to do maintenance, and then all of a sudden you realize it's not just this one sinkhole that's like, we just need a patch. We actually need to redo the whole entire storm drain system. So that is, part of it is that projects do just evolve when you're at the project, when you open up the ground or when you look at the CCTV. And so, part of that's not an easy answer, not a great answer, but it's just the way things move. And I would say maybe the same thing with the stairwell. Maybe they got in there to try to do some maintenance, realized actually we need to replace this whole thing.
Yeah, and with the stairwell, I'll also add that land ownership is taking it's playing into this, where we may not be able to use road bond funding because it's in DOT right of way. There's all these little nuances. And with that, I think the language was it's a maintenance project because there was an initial look at the structure and we thought, okay, there's a few fixes that need to happen. And then we got a structural report. Parks helped with that. And it basically said this is not an acceptable condition for public use, so it needs to be replaced. At which point, like Chelsea said, it's really similar to that sinkhole is actually a much bigger problem. It needs to be ripped out and put back in. So it's more of like a gradient or marching up a mountain in the case of the stairs and many of the projects that end up on the capital improvement list.
We have two questions, one from Daniel.
Hey, Taylor, Daniel George, Mountain View. I have two questions for you. One, as a Mountain View member, we have a master plan for Davis Park, and we were in the most recent bond round for park improvements. And this goes back to like property ownership. It turns, Davis Park is not actually owned by the municipality, it's leased. And so there were questions about whether we can bond for and spend taxpayer money on military land. Other parks we have like Louis Mizell, it's nothing but a right of way for a road. And so this kind of goes down to like a fundamental question. Is there a list of the parks in Anchorage that are dedicated versus not dedicated? I've had several people ask me over the years, and every time I ask the question, I hear, we'll have a list next year. And I've been asking it for like 10 years. How do I find out what parks are dedicated and what aren't?
So if you like spreadsheets, have I got a spreadsheet for you?
Sounds like an answer. I'm excited.
Yeah. So essentially, the person who basically was the keeper of the keys for a lot of the park dedication information, worked for a department for like 20 years, and he retired a week after I took my position. I hope it wasn't the same. I don't think it was because of me. Like I had a Jerry Seinfeld moment, but anyway, so his name was Tom Carosi, and he was really into paper. So I've been trying, along with my staff, to dive into a lot of the things that he was doing and move it into a digital format that's a little bit easier to digest and disseminate. So with that, I will say that there's a slight nuance in that parks are not dedicated. The parcels within parks are dedicated. So there's a lot of like legal jargon in the assembly resolutions or ordinances that dedicate a park, which is actually dedicating parcels within a park. So you'll have parks that are fully dedicated. All the parcels are dedicated. You'll have some that are partially dedicated. Some of the parcels are dedicated. And then of course, some that are just nothing's been touched. So I have this spreadsheet that has some citations for AOs, some legal descriptions, the park, and then the parcels that is mostly up to date that I would be happy to share. As long as it's under the understanding that it's a work in progress, but it's something to move on. So I'm happy to provide that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally.
Sure. I saw a question earlier from Darren. I'm not sure if you put your hand down.
I'll withhold my question for now.
Mike, I've got an update for, not an update, but something that jumps on.
Yeah, actually, how many more slides do you have? Because we're down to about 12 minutes.
We're basically done.
Okay.
We have one more that just shares, if you want to see all of the PM&E projects, which are, public works projects, you can go to community.org/PME projects. This, like the CIP process, which I am only 6 months into my role and hope to, massage and make it more user-friendly to community councils as well as internally. This dashboard is a great resource, but it is absolutely a work in progress. And I would be happy to walk anybody through it if you get there and you're like, this website just isn't working for me. Or if you want to just share feedback with me as I work to make it a little bit more usable. Right now, it's a tool that's trying to work both internally and externally, and I don't think it's doing a good job of either, but it is a place to go to look up all the PM&E projects. And then just our last slide, and Taylor, I think in the notes of the PowerPoint and put our contact information. If you just wanted to copy and paste that into the chat, that would be awesome.
And I will throw it in the recap email.
Great, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Kathy, do you have a comment?
Well, first of all, is this available, is PowerPoint presentation going to be available for us
It
to?
is on our website already, and I will make sure that link goes out in the recap as well.
Okay, great. And then, that follow-up question about designated versus dedicated. Well, that's Tom Perosi. I worked with him probably 10 years ago on trying to figure out which parks within Turnagain Community Council boundaries were designated versus, and he actually came up with a list that now I'm not sure if it's still current, but you know, shockingly, there was 10 plus parks that were just designated and not dedicated, including Fish Creek Estuary, which was just shocking, but that doesn't have a higher level of protected status. And I think every council, if they started digging into it, would have that same wow moment that we had no idea that this was the case. Is there any way that a project on a and then to try and tackle all of that by staff or, you know, some contractor working with staff, try and figure that out would be a massive effort. I'm sure Taylor would agree. So could something on our CIP wish list be funding for that effort? Or would that be better trying to address some other way to try and do that on a scale, not just community council, neighborhood by neighborhood, but throughout the bowl area, starting out with the bowl area? I mean, because we really should know and really have protected, dedicated status where we take a vote of the people to undedicate it for any kind of non-municipal use. I mean, that's pretty critical on some of the areas where, you know, specifically Turnagain and airport, and whether they want to eat up a chunk of HLB land or, you know, land that's owned by the community that isn't a dedicated park, etc. So, you know, and I'm sure every council could come up with a scenario where a private developer, all it takes is a vote of the people if they want to snatch some parkland that's not dedicated for private use. So it has some tremendous ramifications, but that's going to take an effort that requires money. So is that a legitimate CIP project, perhaps?
It wouldn't be something we could bond for, because
Okay.
it's not a capital project.
Okay.
But it could be a budget request.
So maybe that's something FCC could kind of work on in terms of resolution, councils could consider and submit it to staff and our assembly and something in the near future, if we felt like that was a priority for us collectively.
I appreciate you acknowledging that it's a huge lift, Kathy, because it really is. And if I could just wave a wand and have it be done, I would love to be able to have a public resource where folks could just click on a parcel and the AO with all the information would pop up and it would clearly delineate whether a park was dedicated. We also have like a zoning thing that we're trying to work on where many of our parks we inherited, they were donated or whatever, and they're not zoned correctly. Some of them are still zoned as residential parcels or whatever. So that's also sort of bundled into this overall housekeeping effort. But yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging that and advocating for more resources to facilitate something a little bit more useful.
Thank you, Taylor.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah. First comment, thank you very much for taking the time to work on the website, because it is challenging at best. My question is pretty straightforward. So there are roads within the municipality that are obviously state-owned, but there's also roads that are state-owned that are under the auspice of the municipality, and never quite understood how that all works. So you could probably refresh us on that, but basically, what is the responsibility or the CIP process when the state owns that property, but the municipality is responsible for maintaining it?
So there used to be more roads that were owned by the state and maintained by the municipality. There are not as many anymore. There was a formal memorandum of agreement that, you know, the state would actually pay the municipality to maintain, or does pay the municipality to maintain the roads that are still under that sort of dynamic. And I guess I would say that for the most part, DOT maintains their own roads, so there are very few roads that would fall under this, but I think it would. The DOT question with the CIP process, as we brought up sort of in the beginning, is I think it needs to be its own category, basically. The communities like Hillside, you know, primarily projects are on DOT roads, and so it's hard, you know, we as a municipality can't do a lot of bonding for those roads. We could do an area-wide bond if the road isn't maintained by a LRSA or DOT. But even then, you know, it just, the dynamics get very tricky. The lawyers don't like us doing things that aren't allowed under bond, like according to bond counsel. I think having categories will help, but also talking to your legislators and working with DOT is critical.
Understood. So just kind of a follow-up on that then. So the process for a major thoroughfare, like for example, O'Malley, right, state-owned, maintained at some point, sometimes it's maintained by the municipality. For a majority of that time, it's poorly maintained by the state because they just don't have resources. And of course, last year when we had the snow crisis, you know, the mayor's office made a deal, and of course, he got a lot of flack for that, to have those roads maintained by the municipality because the state just wasn't doing it. And they were getting to the point, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Hillside Drive, the Armin Road was almost impassable for 3 days because the state didn't have the resources. And that's when the mayor issued the emergency proclamation. I guess my question is that agreement, is it ongoing, or was it just a one-time event? Is that how
That particular event was just a one-time event. There's not an ongoing agreement. There are formal memorandums of agreement between the state and the municipality for maintenance. And then there are some handshakes. We'll do this section of road if you do a better job over here, or vice versa. And so, yeah, I guess that particular instance was just a one-time.
Thanks. That's all I have. Appreciate you both for
Yeah.
going through this process. It's like very challenging.
I understand, like I said.
Thanks, Chelsea. Thank you very much. I mean, I'll just ask one quick question, take for a minute. How would there's been a discussion over the last many years about possibly a drainage utility? And would that make your life simpler, harder? Would that make our lives simpler or harder? You've got about 1 minute.
We have a lot of needs for storm drain improvements in the municipality. Our storm drain system is failing, similar to our water and wastewater system, similar to our roads are just what we see on the surface.
Right.
So I don't think I'm supposed to comment on a policy
Understood,
issue, but
I guess the question, the analogy there is water and wastewater is not dealt with by the CIP process, is it? It's dealt with separately.
enterprises have their own CIP.
Yeah, so there is a separate process.
But
not
they have their budget book just like we do.
right.
Yeah.
But community councils typically, I don't think, do get too involved, are not that involved in that process when it's a utility.
Right.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Not that bombshell.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Taylor.
Good job.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Motion to adjourn?
we're 1 minute at the end, so unless there are any comments, motion to adjourn, I'd entertain.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody. Excellent.